Hey everyone, welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, Rob is off this week. He has some personal business to take care of, but we will return with Rob here next week at 8 p.m. Eastern, as I will be back in the Philippines. But I wanted to take some time today and put out a show. I've got some stuff that I want to share with you, stuff that I've got on my mind, some stuff that's happening in the space. So if you're here, thanks for being here. If you're here live, thanks for that. If you're listening later, appreciate you for continue to support the show. So very, very, very busy week in podcasting. Lots of interesting discussions, but one that I've been paying attention to is a discussion that's been happening in the podcasting 2.0 space. And it kind of corresponds with it's the effort was already ongoing, but the Apple announcement of new image specs, not for your podcast art or your episode art, but for being featured and, new and notable and all those things that Apple does. Where they've renamed Show Hero artwork to Showcase Hero. And, what we're starting to see is that, and it makes sense with the diversification of apps, sites, services. Not all sites are built the same. Not all apps are built the same. And a 1400 by 1400 or a 3000 by 3000 pixel image is not often enough. We know that we have album art that follows the Apple spec, and we all know what that is. We all know what that is, aka a square image, no rounded corners. Again, 1400 by 1400, I think up to 3000 by 3000. I make all mine 1400 by 1400 as I want to make sure I have a little diversity in the colors, and the file size doesn't get too out of control. But that said, there's other apps that have different needs, and why not provide, if we know the specs that are available across a variety of different apps, why not provide the app developers and those that are running websites, why don't we provide them with a basically the image of the size that they want? Makes all the sense in the world to me that we would do that, because what does that do? It increases the user experience. We get the ability to make sure that the listeners have the best experience on the app. So let's say Overcast says, hey, I'd like to have a banner image above every show. And, what if that banner image is 300 by 200? Well, currently there's really no spec per se. There's no way to get that image to Overcast. What if we have true fans that may have 2 or 3 different images that they would love to have, one for their website, one for their PWA, and one for their forthcoming iOS app? And what if we knew those image sizes, and as creators, we could provide that to them? So Dave and the team and those that are involved in the podcasting 2.0 are want to expand the podcast image spec by providing a purpose. Basically, you have the ability to have the purpose of the image. And let me see if I can bring it up here, 5, 6. For those of you that are, that's why that's not doing. I'll bring the screen up here in a second. Why not provide them with that very specific image? Okay, here we go. So there's an example of it in the podcastindex.social website talking about, you've got the tag, less than podcast, image. The purpose of that image is the Apple /hero, a width of 4320, and I'm going to assume that is pixels, and then an example, an href example, with the link to the media. So the href would be our newmediashow.com/images/apple_hero.jpg. Now they've also are working on the spec in a to basically lay it all out so that everyone can actually look at what the actual spec is going to be. And I know David posted a link to that this actual afternoon, and let's see if I can scroll down and find that. Maybe it's in the thread here. So yeah, so they've come up with the full spec over on the GitHub. And I know many of you, when you go over the GitHub, your eyes roll into the back of your heads. But we are going to depreciate the original version of images. Now it'll continue to work, but they're going to essentially now allow this new spec to take place and let the apps update. We'll definitely be doing that at Blueberry. But I think this is a fantastic opportunity. They say that expanding RSS has no value. Well, the value is we make the experience better for the listener. And anytime we make the experience better for the listener, why not, right? Now, what has Apple done in the past? In the Apple Podcast app, when you load your show, they kind of do a match color to your show art for a background. And then on episodes, they do the same thing. So why not have the ability to send them the exact image in the RSS feed? And of course, right now, this is the tag is not being used, I believe. I think it's a global setting, but it could get down into the episode area too if it gets that fancy. Now, probably most podcasters are not going to provide a couple of pieces of art for every episode, but I'm already creating art with AI. It's really easy. Today's art that I put up for the YouTube episode, I had Sora create that in about 60 seconds. So why not? If I can have art created this easily, and I'm not an artist, and I'm sorry for those of you that may be being impacted by this, but if I'm not an artist and I need a variety of art that is good enough, I'm all for it. Sign me up. And if we can make it so that and we can even generate some of this. Some of this can get better at the hosting side by saying, hey, do you want, as a matter of fact, Blueberry's doing this already. Do you want episode art? And we create that for them. We automatically link that in their production, in their show notes, so that it's in the feed. And so when they hit publish, they've got episode art. We're doing that with AI for our hosting customers. So we could do this at a much higher level. We could have art generation tools for those that are not artistically inclined. I had to laugh the other day. I took an old GNC logo, and I said, "Hey, making an improvement on this." And wow, it really did. So I used something that had been done by an artist 20 years ago, and really made it look better. Now, let's just be frank. The art doesn't always get it right. Sora gave me 4 examples today, and one of these was not super good. It came up expanding podcast image standards for position. What do you mean for position? And that don't make no sense. But the other day, I was on my regular tech show. I was talking about DeepSeek and how they've been accused of aiding the Chinese military, and it did a wonderful job, in coming up with not only the YouTube art, but also the art for the episode art. Just absolutely fantastic. I think I picked this one. for those of you that are watching. Anyway, you can go to Geek and Central and see the episode art I've been using. And these have been done with prompts that, to be honest with you, a kindergartner could write. So, I'm absolutely thrilled. Now, sometimes it doesn't get it good. And of course, I'm making art now. We've updated our image model at Blueberry, and I'm getting Sora quality images out of that. So there's lots of ways to create images, and then this image tag just would make the experience richer. Now, whether or not Ted and his team will pick this up, if the Apple Podcast team will pick this up, is another thing. But here's the beauty of it. If Apple wants to feature someone, they could do this almost without even talking to the podcaster. Because sometimes you got to fill out an application. You got to tell them why. Why should we be, why we should be featured and all these other things. And they could say, hey, we know of a show, and let's just, and they don't even have to support it by ingesting it. They could just know that in the RSS feed, they can find the link to this media, and even if they manually grab it, it's there, right? But what better if they just suck it in and it's available within their administrative interface on Apple side. And the same thing for all the other apps. If we can update on the will and it's actually integrated so that, just like when you change your album art or your episode art, when Apple or any other app see an update, a couple days, boom, there's a change, right? So it allows content creators to keep all their art modern and up to date on a variety of apps and services. I think this is just a great idea, and it's simple. It's very, very simple. This would be very simple for my dev team to implement. All we'll have is just this, the standard image link, and then we'll have a plus button below it. And the plus button will probably have a pull down. I'm hoping that there will be a pull down of a variety of services. And I'm sure over time, probably that list would update. And Dave, if you're listening, I would have a JSON list somewhere that would allow us to have that pull down tied to a JSON list that could be through a pull request. You could have those image requirements being updated automatically, and I don't have to go back and recode it. We just know that this JSON list contains all the specs for a specific image tag. That to us is just going to make it easy to stay current. I code this up once. I know where the list is to get the different drop downs to say, okay, I want something for TrueCast or I want something for Overcast. And I think what you'll find very quickly is apps will start to say, hey, we want to get in on the game, and here's the specs we'd love to have from a creator. Now, it probably doesn't always come without risk. You're going to have someone that's going to play stupid games and probably put something that they shouldn't, but then they're going to pay the price in their listing. So I thought this was something fantastic, and it just makes so much sense to me that I'm surprised that it wasn't thought of earlier. Now, I don't know who the origin person was of this. So here's the new write-up. So there's the depreciated one. So it's going to have a parent. It's going to be, can be multiple. And the attributes are going to be href, aspect ratio, width, height, type, purpose, and alt, which contains. So these are the basically the attributes of the image tag, and purpose tokens. Now, what are the purpose tokens? The purpose attribute, okay, the purpose token says what it's for. So artwork, social, canvas. So again, this goes beyond just, could be a circular, could be something for a publisher, for cover art, But again, I think what we're going to find out is that there could be a huge number of options here, and maybe at some point there'll be some default height and widths that to be expected. So they showed some of the use cases: podcast image, video / MP4, and basically it would be a PCI square. So basically something like running a real intro. So it's not only images; it could be JPEGs, MP4s. So there's all kinds of cool use purposes in here. I'll have a link in the show notes to the proposed and new spec, and you can comment on it. But yeah, seems pretty exciting to me, and it makes a lot of sense. I could see wide adoption by apps and so forth. All right, so enough on that. So, of course, there's other stuff going on in the podcasting space. Podcasting overtakes radio in Germany. That's to be expecting here. This is going to continue to be the news across a lot of different locations. A lot of this news came out of Pod News, so credit to Pod News. Go over there and subscribe to the newsletter. And Acast, they've got a new CEO over there. After 8 years, CEO Ross Adam has moved to a strategic advisor and is succeeded by Greg Glenday, formerly of Shazam, iHeartMedia, and Undertow. So big move there. Of course, for the first time, and I reported this on my tech show as well, on-demand streaming has surpassed both TV and cable. So YouTube accounts for 12.5% of all this streaming. So not as big a number as I would have thought it would have been. But again, on-demand streaming, on-demand podcasts, audio and video via Apple TV, of course, or wherever you consume your podcast, specifically on the television. This on-demand streaming has surpassed TV and cable. So that's huge. So what's going to be a quicker race to the bottom? Broadcast radio or broadcast TV and cable? That's probably the question, right? Of what will go south first. So Spotify, it's the name that should not be named within the show, but I'm going to talk about them, and they've gotten an interesting article that came out from Digiday that reports that major podcast networks remain wary of Spotify's video podcast program. And although some independent creators, they're yielding up to 5 times the revenue they see on YouTube. And I just wonder, and when I hear that type of a multiplier, is it because it's being propped up? Are they juicing the CPMs? Or are they actually getting true higher CPMs than YouTube? So, if I was a video first dude or dudette, I think that 5 times revenue, if you're on the revenue side, that seems pretty appealing. But again, is it because they're making it look good? And I understand people's wariness, are being wary. I can't say that word to save my life. And I like one of the comments that a good friend of mine has said. Is Heather Osgood, the founder of the True Native Media podcast rep agency. And Heather really knows what she's doing out there. She says, I'm an ad sales company. I'm not a views company. It's because basically Spotify saying we're going to pay you for views. And again, she's not a view sales company because let's be honest with you, podcasters are still being paid by the almighty download. Long live the download. But, the split in this concern comes from, again, here's how Spotify could have solved this. And this is what they should have done. So I'm hoping Spotify's listening. You want to remove all of the concern? Make it so people can listen when they want to listen and watch when they want to watch. And then I, as the content creator, I can say, all right, audience, listen, if you're on Spotify and you're just listening, make sure you use the listen button to listen instead of the view button, and putting the phone in your pocket. Because if you're listening, we want to make sure that our audio is still monetized, but that's not the case. They don't have that option. You upload video to Spotify, overwrite your audio essentially, and now if people want to listen, they're listening to the video audio, and the ability to monetize on Spotify through dynamic ad insertion and programmatic has truly and ultimately been destroyed. And, the little secret is, as I'm talking to people at different events and I'm saying, what's the delta? What are you seeing before and what are you seeing now? And it always doesn't paint a positive picture, because people are losing money because they're getting higher CPMs for the audio that's being delivered. You think about this, just think about for a second. And because, again, there's no apples and oranges here. If Spotify came out and said, you're getting a $25 CPM, and we know what that is in podcasting, $25 per thousand. And if you're getting a $25 CPM, the same measuring model, but it's not apples and oranges. You're getting paid for views, but what is a view? What is the view determination? And let's say you're getting 1,000 views and you're getting paid $6, but that same 1,000 views that Spotify is counting is actually only like 250 downloads, then it would be even, right? Again, you know what I mean here. But there's no transparency into that, and there's no transparency in rev share. That's the thing that blows me away. You don't know how much you're getting. So these folks that are earning 5 times, maybe Spotify said, okay, we'll just give them 100% to make it look good. We're not going to take any revenue share. So to make a headline here that, everything is well. So I don't trust anyone except for when I'm doing advertising in my show. I know what my reporting numbers are. I know what I'm getting paid for that. I have a very steady, consistent revenue stream based upon the performance of my show. If you're playing the advertising game. And of course, these concerns obviously comes from podcast networks and podcast executives, because how many times are we going to cut the pie here? So you got to think about that again. Now think about this for a second. So if I go out and do my own deal, what do I earn? 100% of that deal. If I'm the podcast ad rep agency, and we're on a 50-50 split, and the amount of money your show made, so, okay, I do a deal myself, I earn $1,000, that's all my money. When you use an agency and it's 50-50, agency gets 500, you get 500. So, okay, all right, that's what you signed up for. You signed up for representation to do ad split. And that's what I hear a lot of people are on, is 50-50. To me, it seems insane that anyone would agree to a 50-50 split to begin with. We're 70-30 when we do an ad deal for a podcaster, 70% to the podcaster, 30% to us. And ultimately, if I'm working with an agency, I actually only make 15% because I take their 15% out of mine. So that of $1,000, you're still getting $700. $150 to me, $150 to the ad agency. For people that do high volume, I might do 80-20, whereas I'm only making 5% on the deal because 15% or more typically always go to the ad agency. So I take a smaller cut to make sure the podcaster is good. So let's use the 50-50 example. $1,000 if I do it on my own, $500 if I'm doing it with an ad agency. Now let's throw a third party in there. So your show is repped by company ABCDEFG. Let's call them Acme Ad Agency. Their deal with you is 50-50. Okay, so of that, let's say let's just hypothetically say you earned $1,000 on Spotify. Spotify sends and Spotify takes their cut. Let's say their cut at Spotify was $500. Let's say it's 50-50. We don't know. Let's say it's 50. So the ad agency now gets $500 and you end up with $250. This is where the concern is. In the end, the creator gets screwed. So if you do a direct deal, that's always the best. Always the best. If you're doing an ad agency, you're paying for the pleasure of working with that agency on whatever that ad revenue split is. I was talking with someone recently that wanted to come in and help us with programmatic, a very, very, very big company. And I said, what's the ad split? And she said 50-50. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing 50-50. Are you insane? 50-50 really for doing nothing? Literally nothing. Yes, they have back end stuff and all that. I understand. But that's not worth 50%. Not, no way, no how. So, in the end, the advertising agencies make a lot of money because they're representing a lot of podcasters, and then the podcasters end up getting screwed. Now, again, I would be very, very careful if I'm a podcaster that has a growing audience and I go to do an ad split deal with a company. I'm going to negotiate that split pretty hard. If I'm a big enough fish and I'm delivering hundreds of thousands of impressions, downloads, whatever you want to call them, I'm not going to settle for a 50-50 split. I'm probably not going to settle for a 70-30 split. I'm probably going to go like 80-20 because they make it up in volume. So this is where the rub comes in, because as soon as they go on SPP, then the ad agency loses. That's why they don't like it. If you've done the deal direct, which I don't think you can do unless you're a big, big podcaster over on Spotify. So they're digging into that. So all of a sudden now let's just, now media advertiser, media buyers, media agencies are feeling the pain of the OLL Spotify. Because what did Spotify do to hosting providers? Well, they came in and offered free podcast hosts. So certain folks you can't compete with free. They slob all over that free offering, not knowing what the impact is ultimately. Oh, that didn't hurt the agencies then. Oh, boo-hoo. Boo-hoo podcast hosting company. So sorry for you. Now they're coming after ad agencies' money. So now, of course they don't like it. Because what happens when the podcaster says, okay, you can represent me on everything except for Spotify. because we're going to opt into the Spotify Partner Program, and I'm just going to get the check from Spotify. I don't need you, agency, anymore. And let's say 50% of your audience is with Spotify, then the agency immediately loses 50% of its revenue if it's not. But agency can say, oh, no, 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 we have to have it all. But will they be able to keep it all? So now, again, not only did the hosting companies get screwed, but the agencies are starting to feel the pinch too. I wonder if that's the case that's happened over on YouTube. So I might be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. And at some point, these 800-pound gorillas are going to cause an impact. And people are going to start getting laid off. Because the walled gardens the walls are getting higher. Much, much, much higher. So I heard that our good friends from, I'm pulling a brain fart here. It's not in my show notes. It's, it'll come to me. I'll come back to it. What triggered me here was people are working on audio processing quite a bit. And who am I trying to think of? This is bad. It's driving me so much I can't handle it here. Let me go to Blueberry and go to our partners page. This is horrible. Don't you like listening to a show that doesn't do any editing? And it's what is the name? Okay, I'm getting close here. Oh no, Todd, I don't want that page. Where is it? I'm gonna kick myself here in a minute when I remember what the company's name is. Okay, let me go over here. Yeah. Okay, I'll figure it out. But Alphonic. Needed Rob here. Alphonic has introduced some stuff where you can have coughs and a bunch of other stuff removed from the audio. I'm a big fan of Alphonic in a big way, and I'm really pleased with this. So we'll see. We'll probably do some experiments. We're integrated with Alphonic for our media mastering. So is Buzzsprout. They use Alphonic as well. They call it Magic Mastering or whatever, but we both use the same company for the media mastering services for our customers. They're the best in my opinion. So if they've got these new features, I might be able to turn some of this on for our podcasters, but we definitely want to test it to make sure that the audio really sounds real. Maybe it'll be an option to turn those types of features on within our platform. We'll have to see. But pretty excited about this stuff that Alphonic is doing. We know that a Pocket Cast added generated and creator transcripts, auto-generated ads, auto-generated and creator transcripts. Their player now shows transcripts when available, and for Plus subscribers, it auto-generates them for any episode, boosting accessibility for deaf and hard of hearing. So Pocket Cast continues to do cool things. They've obviously added Podroll. So if you are a podcaster and your podcast host does not have the Podroll feature, so sorry for you. Definitely go over to podcastindex.org, click on the apps button, and then you can see which host provide Podroll. Blueberry is one of those. There's a few of us, not all of the companies that have been playing in the Podcasting 2.0 space have done it. I believe that Buzzsprout did because they're the one that thought about implementing that. I don't think RSS.com has it yet. Anyway, you'll have to go over to the list and take a look. The Podcast Marketing Academy 2025 Trends report says their survey reveals 55% of shows shrank in listenership this year. Well, we did not see that. They did a survey. We have actual data. It is not down. They said 18% doubled. We're seeing strong growth across all shows. I mean, really all shows. They think that the business interview formats were the strongest, up 5%. So again, I don't know how they got this data. They said 55% of shows shrank in listenership. We have not seen that at all, because here's the deal: the number of shows being active are really not growing that well, that are active. The number still, if we look at the running average right now, let me load this up here, so that I can give you the actuals. Oh my God, come on, Todd. I click on this wrong. Let's go back here. Currently, in the last 30 days, only 348,000 shows have updated. That's down. Only 348,000. The last 3 days is not bad. 106,000. That stays about right. And that's always stayed about at 100K. Past 10 days is 235. 30 days is 348. I know someone's got a chart somewhere. 60-day average is 427,000 shows. But even if you extend that out to 90 days, only 484,000 shows have published an episode. So, but again, shows that published an episode in the last 3, 10, 30 days. So what is the number? What is the number of active shows? I'm going to contend the number of active shows is still around 400,000. So if we think about that, and yet according to all reports and everything that everyone is saying, and all Edison and everyone else, listenership is up. So of course, listenership is focused. A lot of listeners are on all the top shows, but there is this trickle down effect, and we've seen that. Very few shows have grown. Now, my show Geek News Central had a little drop over the past 3 months, but for the whole year, I'm up. I really am. So, but on average, we can see, and I'll have to ask the team to post some numbers and see if we can do some month-to-month averages and see what the actual number is. But I just go in and I see these increasing lines of almost every show I look at, and podcasters I talk to, they're growing. And they're not growing like 35, 40%, but 3, 5, 6, 7%, 10%. And maybe you don't think that's good, but you compound that year after year, it's a pretty good number. So I don't know. What do you consider a respectable growth rate? Now, I never expected ever to see a Walmart having a podcast studio, but apparently in Franklin, Tennessee, the Walmart there has opened 6 on-site Dolby Atmos ready studios for podcasts and vodcasts and live streams. So no idea how much they cost to use or anything more than that, but interesting indeed. What else do I have in my stack today here? So VidCon just happened. A number of podcasters attended VidCon last week under a Spotify sponsorship. I was seeing a little bit on social about VidCon. And now that before used to be a pretty big event. So if anyone win, I'd love to hear from you indeed. So, but a lot of stuff going on. I think the summer is, summer is here. Europe is starting to throttle back, and for the summer, a lot of people go on vacation in Europe in the summer. That's to be fully expected. But we're not seeing a drop in we're not seeing a drop in the in totals at all. I think one thing that I missed in the story about Germany, the women are outpacing the men that are listening to podcasts. And I tell you, the ladies, as far as creation standpoint goes, it's almost a dead heat at this point from a new creation standpoint. I keep seeing shows that come in, and immediately it's like I look, okay, is this a man or a woman? And the number of solo shows, also we're seeing an increase in solo shows, which is interesting. So anyway, and did you see anything interesting I should have talked about this week? Was there something here that I should have covered it, or should have covered, not covered it? Rob will be back with us next week, and I heard some of you. I heard from some of you via email, and some of you were very surprised in some things Rob said 2 shows ago. And, I think we all got a little bit of chuckle. Yes, audio is still fantastic. But we'll see. The video messaging is strong across many, many different places. But I think if you go look at Blueberry and you look at what Apple did, it's probably a blog post we put out in the first week of June, and the Apple Podcast share was dramatically up. The main numbers they saw a huge surge. We'll see what they end up being for July. It varies a little bit, but they had an unusual boost. Matter of fact, we had to go back and we did an audit to make sure that there was not something reporting as it should not be, or something categorized incorrectly. And yeah, Apple had a huge surge in listeners in May. So say what you will about where people listen to podcasts, and Apple remains king of the hill, in my opinion. I know my personal show, my tech show, be quite frank, it's like less than 1% on Spotify, and that's being kind, but it's a tech show. People are not really listening to tech shows on Spotify. I get my biggest bang out of Twitter, or X. Yeah, not supposed to call it Twitter anymore. X, right? But we'll see. We'll see where things go. We're getting ready to go into live beta of our guestmatch.pro website. There's some bonus stuff. Anyone that wants to get in there early and sign up for the beta, we're probably going to be on about a 3-month free offering as we're building creators. It's not just a podcasting matching service. It's a creator platform. And we'll be looking to, if you run an agency and you're representing podcasters and trying to find them, all Blueberry podcasters that have a hosting account with us get access to guestmatch.pro for free. They can create a guest or a creator and guest profile. So that's forthcoming from us. We got some other exciting stuff coming too. Lots moving. Matter of fact, I spent about 5 hours today doing sprint planning for the next 2 weeks. And sprint planning for me normally takes about 2.5 hours. So we're wrapping up some loose ends and a whole bunch of stuff. But as always, you can support the show by boosting. We appreciate it when you do. For those of you that are still using the Podcasting 2.0 apps at podcastapps.com, I do want to thank Mike Dell for his 20,000 boost and Darren Schwartz for coming in here and boosting by the minute, along with a number of other of you. Hey, this was that Darren. That 50 sats a minute was fantastic, my friend. You love the episode. YouTube isn't podcasting's king. That one. Thank you for those sats per minute. And Darren Schwartz. I think you're the number one supporter of this show when it comes to streaming sats. Also, if you want to donate, you want to throw us a few shekels, go. We got a PayPal link at newmediashow.com. So stay subscribed. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to say subscribe because I'm old school and I can do that. And thank you for subscribing to the show. And if you want to call it follow, that's fine. But thank you for being here. Rob and I will be back next week. I don't want to waste your time. We'll get out of here. And anyway, we're going to continue to develop the show as time goes on. And the format is definitely in flux right now. But it's been my pleasure. You all take care. Stay safe. Go over to newmediashow.com. Everyone take care. Bye-bye.